Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to be showing you how I engrave and then paint my plaques that I make. So in this one I'm going to be doing 3 different ones all at the same time, as you can see from the screen, and then I'll be walking you through each step. So for the engraving part then, I'm using 500mm a second at 45% power, and I'm using 4 passes just to get to a nice depth. I have, since recording this video, discovered that if I change the interval, the line interval, I can do it in less because I'm getting a deeper engrave because it's burning more wood at the same time. The reason I'm doing a deeper engrave is part of the process you'll see coming up is I sand it quite a few times. So now that the engravings are finished, it's just a case of a quick sand to remove any soot and leftover smoke debris from the engraving, and then we can move on to the next part. I'm just using a random orbital sander with 120 grit. There's no really need to go any finer with this because the process I've worked out, that's all you really need is 120 grit. You don't need to go to the extremes and use 300 grit or anything like that. So for this part I'm just brushing off the excess sawdust or sanding dust, whatever you want to call it. I would use a compressor but I don't have one, so a fine bristle brush is perfect. Gets into all the nooks and crannies and removes that extra dust. Now it's time to paint. I'm just using an acrylic paint I get from the range in the UK. I'm sure you can use pretty much any acrylic paint, but this stuff's quite thick, so I like it. You only really need 1 coat. You need to be careful that you get it onto all the corners and stuff, but you'll see the process of how I paint it. Nice and precise, as you can tell. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, what if the paint bleeds into the grain of the wood? Well, what I'll say to that is, the wood that I'm using, I've tested everything, and I know that this wood doesn't bleed with the acrylic paint I'm using, so make sure you do your tests.
Sometime later.
Now that I've got all 3 painted and the paint's dry, I just use the same sandpaper, 120 grit, and I just go over it gently, making sure the sander's flat on the piece so you're not going to dig in, and it removes all the excess paint. So you'll see that I've left this at real-time speed just so you can see how long, or not so long as the case may be, it takes to sand off the extra paint. Again, we just go back in with that soft brush to remove any sanding debris, clean out all the paint and make it pop again. Now that the pieces are all dust free, it's time to apply our finish. I'm using Danish oil just because it's what I had at hand and it's easy to apply. I use a foam pad brush, for want of a better word. I don't know what you would call it, to be quite honest with you, just because it's easy to get the stuff on. I think you'll agree, it really does make the image pop. And it really is easy to get that oil into all the wee gaps and stuff, because obviously the sponge holds onto the oil. So here's a massive difference comparison between the two oil piece and the unoiled piece. I think you'll agree that it really does need that extra oil just to make the image pop. I hope that this video has given you some inspiration and ideas as how you could paint your engravings. So if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could drop me a like and maybe subscribe to the channel. Cheers!